Through the world of Douluo in the forest, he became the only son of a coffin shop owner in Notting City. At the age of 6, he awakened his martial soul. Soul Lock Warden Hammer Stone, with an innate soul power of 20 levels, shocking the martial soul hall. Ghost Douluo came to pick him up overnight. Martial soul comes with passive skill Hell Curse. Harvest soul, provide defense and soul power, can stack infinitely. Lin Luo said, let's just stack 10,000 passive layers and start with our own coffin shop. Several years later. Tang San. My Haotian hammer is almost smashed to pieces, and surprisingly, it couldn't harm the Lin Luo at all. Helena. There is only one person in my heart. Qianren Shui. The forest falls are mine. Keywords of the novel. Douluo. Martial Soul Hammer Stone, infinite stacking passive without pop-ups, Douluo. Martial Soul Hammer Stone, infinite stacking passive. Download the complete set of TXT, Douluo. Martial Soul Hammer Stone, infinite stacking passive. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Martial Soul Awakening, Soul Lock Warden. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Martial Soul Awakening, Soul Lock Warden. Lin Luo, you don't need to go with me to deliver the coffin today. At noon, your uncle will take you to the Martial Soul Hall to awaken your martial soul. Maybe you will come early, so you can wait at home. Got it, father. The forest watched as the tall man in front of them left, and turned to wipe the coffins in the shop. I have been in this world for 3 years without realizing it, and finally it's time to awaken my martial soul. Lin Luo looked at a copper mirror in the shop, inside which was a 6-year-old boy with a slightly chubby baby, delicate and cute, dressed in an ordinary grey cloth suit. If it weren't for my unexpected arrival in this world, you should have died at the age of 3, but if you hadn't died, I'm unlikely to have survived. Lin Luo was not originally from this world. He came from Blue Star and accidentally traveled through a car accident to save people. A very outdated crossing routine, but it happened to the forest. Lin Luo's current identity is the only son of Lin Dashan, the owner of the Shilin family coffin shop in Notting City. Coincidentally, both of them are named Lin Luo. The forest in this world has been plagued by illness since birth. At the age of 3, I finally couldn't bear it and felt that the world was not beautiful enough, so I chose to leave. Coincidentally, the forest from the Blue Star arrived, bringing it back to life and freeing it from illness. However, no one knew that there was a soul in its 20s hidden within this small body. In the 3 years I have been in this world, the forest has figured out many things. This is Douluo world, to be precise, Dui world. Coincidentally, he was at the same time as Tang San. The reason why Lin Luo can determine the current Douluo time point is because he happened to be going out with his parents to deliver coffins to Holy Soul Village and accidentally passed by Tang San's home. He is about the same age as Tang San, but he has the love of his parents, while Tang San has a father who is an alcoholic and only gives birth but not raises him. That was his first meeting with Tang San, and the only time they had met in the past 3 years. Not to mention that Lin Luo had no intention of making friends with Tang San, his parents would not allow him to go out at his age. Only when he followed his parents to deliver the coffin can he see the outside world. Hey, kid, what are you doing there? Where are your parents? As the forest looked back on its past, a rough voice suddenly sounded outside the store. Lin Luo followed the sound and saw a thin middle-aged man standing outside, carrying someone on his back. That person is also a man in his 20s, with a pale face, purple lips, and a slightly stiff body. It's a dead person. Lin Luo has long been accustomed to seeing dead people and has no fear at all. Do you want to buy a coffin? Lin Luo asked calmly. The skinny man smiled and said, what else can we do at the coffin shop? Of course we're buying coffins. You little brat doesn't understand, hurry up and call your parents out. Lin Luo nodded and said, please wait a moment, I'll go find my mother. After Lin Luo finished speaking, she went to the backyard where there were many woods. A young woman in her 30s was tidying up the waste, and she was the mother of Lin Luo, Zhao Cuizue. Zhao Cuizue's appearance belongs to the durable type, with a beauty mole on her face. Her long hair is coiled in a ball and fixed with a wooden hairpin. Her figure is quite plump, wearing light blue clothes, giving a very gentle feeling overall. Mother, someone has bought a coffin. Okay. Zhao Cuizue quickly packed the waste into the firewood room, gently patted off the dust on her body, and then went to the shop with the forest. Are you the landlady? I'm interested in this coffin. Can you give me a price? The skinny man had already walked into the shop and stopped in front of an ordinary coffin. Zhao Cuizue glanced at it and immediately smiled, saying, 50 silver soul coins. In this world, soul coins are the main currency. 1 gold soul coin is equivalent to 100 silver soul coins, which is equivalent to 10,000 copper soul coins. This is different from the currency setting in Douluo, but it is also clearer and does not appear chaotic. The purchasing power of 1 copper soul coin is equivalent to $1 in the original world of the forest. The skinny man didn't hesitate for a moment, as if he had already thought about it. He nodded directly and said, okay, here is a golden soul coin, but I want to leave my buddy in your shop for 2 days. Is that okay? This may not work. We only sell coffins, but you can go to the charity village at the corner of this street, and we can also help you contact them. The price should be more favorable. Zhao Cuizue smiled and glanced at the skinny man and the dead person behind him, then added, there is an ice storage in Yizhuang, which can keep the body preserved for a longer time. The skinny man nodded and said, okay, here's the money for you. You can arrange things. 1 golden soul coin should be enough, right? Enough, enough. Zhao Cuizue smiled and took the golden soul coin, then said to Lin Luo, hurry up and say hello. Lin Luo nodded and immediately set off, quickly running to Yizhuang. This street was very deserted, with no one living there. Apart from being remote, the main reason was that no one wanted to live with the dead. Auntie, business is here. Running to the entrance of the Yizhuang, the forest shouted loudly. Here we go. A sturdy woman walked out with an excited smile on her face. She is Mo Xiaoyu, the aunt of Lin Luo, and this charity village is owned by his uncle Lin Dehai. The two of them quickly returned to the coffin shop, and on the way, Mo Xiaoyu called for 2 often cooperating coolies. After greeting the skinny man at the coffin shop, Mo Xiaoyu took charge of the rest. With the consent of the skinny man, the body was directly placed in the coffin and then carried to the cemetery together. This kind of business is not the first time that the forest has seen it, but it is still the first time that someone as wealthy as today has seen it. Excluding costs, there are expenses for this month. A faint smile appeared on Zhao Cuizue's face, and compared to Mo Xiaoyu's excitement, she appeared much calmer after making money. Mother, that uncle just now looked so fresh. He shouldn't be from Nodding City, right? How did he bring the dead into the city? Lin Luo asked. Zhao Cuizue said, Nodding City is not small either. There are many people I don't know. How many people have you just met? Lin Luo nodded lightly and didn't ask any more questions. Zhao Cuizue then said, if I have time this afternoon, I'll go over and take a look. When I come back, I'll know the identity of that person. Alright, I'll continue to tidy up in the backyard. If any guests come over, just call me. I reckon your uncle will come over later, and I'll settle the bill with him as well. Lin Luo nodded and said, okay. The morning passed quickly, and there were no new customers in the shop, nor did Lin Dehai, the uncle of the forest, come over. Everything was as expected in the forest, and besides the business of the Yizhuang, Lin Dehai was also busy with some other businesses and didn't come so quickly. Zhao Cuizue spent a lot of time tidying up the backyard and was already preparing lunch. During the process of tidying up her belongings, she occasionally emits angry voices, such as, "Lin Dashin, you're already in your teens, why do you still like to litter?" Zhao Cuizui has a gentle appearance in front of most people, but always looks fierce in front of Lin Dashin. Every day in the forest, she hears her father being scolded. The forest has long been accustomed to this. Approaching noon, Uncle Lin Dahai finally arrived. Lin Dahai, like Lin Dashin, is tall in stature. The two brothers have a 6 or 7 point similarity in appearance, and Lin Dahai is several years younger. There is a shocking scar on Lin Dahai's neck, which is said to have been left by him when he went out to explore at the age of 17 or 18. "Uncle. Hey." Lin Dahai touched Lin Luo's head and then shouted towards the backyard, "Sister-in-law, I took my nephew to awaken my martial soul. Okay, come over for lunch with your siblings later." Zhao Cuizui's voice came from the backyard. "Good, your parents really don't accompany you on such an important matter as your martial soul awakening." Walking on the streets of Nodding City, Lin Dahai expressed some dissatisfaction. Lin Luo said, "They are busy." Lin Dahai said, "No matter how busy you are, you still need to find time to come out. This is an important day for your martial soul awakening." "Uncle, what kind of martial soul do you think I can awaken, and what is the level of innate soul power?" Lin Luo suddenly asked. Lin Dahai fell silent for a moment. The martial souls of the Lin family are all sickles, extremely ordinary sickles with an innate soul power level of 0. In fact, the awakening of most people's martial souls is expected, and those who have some knowledge of martial souls will understand an extremely cruel fact. The quality of martial souls is basically determined by the martial souls of your parents. How low is the probability of a genius coming up among the common people? Although Lin Luo looks forward to the awakening of his martial soul, he does not hold much hope. He has always been comforting himself, and such a simple and peaceful life is also quite good. Lin Dahai and Lin Luo quickly arrived at the sub-hall of the Martial Soul Hall in Nodding City. After registering the relevant information, Lin Luo was taken to a specialized martial soul awakening room by a young man in his 20s. After Lin Luo entered, Lin Dahai clasped his hands outside the door and prayed incessantly, "O ancestors of the Lin family, bless the forest. It's time for our Lin family to have a soul master too." Martial Soul Awakening Room. The young man smiled gently and said, "Let me introduce myself first. My name is Su Yuntao, a level 26 soul master." Upon hearing these words, Lin Luo's expression suddenly became more exciting, and he suddenly felt that his martial soul awakening had another chance. Su Yuntao thought that Lin Luo was surprised by the strength of his great soul master. He smiled and said, "After awakening your martial soul, if you have soul power, you can also become a soul master." Lin Luo secretly said in his heart, "Brother Tao, you don't need to be so friendly. You must say later that my martial soul is useless." Su Yuntao gave Lin Luo a brief introduction to the process of awakening his martial soul, and then pointed to the 6 black stones placed next to him. "Step in." The forest immediately followed suit, and Su Yuntao had no unnecessary words. He injected soul power into the stone, and the awakening of the forest's martial soul began. The golden light constantly emerged from the black stones, quickly forming a golden lampshade that enveloped the forest. Immediately after, the forest felt waves of warmth rising from its 4 limbs, and the whole person became relaxed. However, this comfortable feeling did not last long and was soon replaced by an indescribable coldness. In that moment, the forest felt its soul frozen. He instinctively extended his right hand, and all the coldness quickly condensed towards the palm of his hand, gradually forming a huge sickle with green light. The end of the sickle was connected to the chain, and the other end of the chain was tied to a lantern emitting green light, filled with a strange atmosphere. Before the forest could react, several cold sounds exploded in its mind. The divine level selection system is currently binding successful. You have successfully awakened your martial soul. Soul Lock Warden. Innate Soul Power Level 20. Obtain the passive ability of Soul Lock Warden. Curse of Hell. Your innate soul power level is about to be exposed, and you face a choice. Option 1. Persist in being yourself, showcase your true innate soul power level, and reward you with one book of cultivation techniques. Option 2. Choose low. Key, conceal your innate soul power level, and reward a spatial soul guide, PS, reading guide, must read. Firstly, there is the question of Apprentice Ghost Douluo, which is the most widely questioned question. Why Apprentice Ghost Douluo? From the perspective of the protagonist, a 95-level peak Douluo wants to take you as an apprentice. Do you have the right to refuse? Refusal does not only mean offending the other party, but it is highly likely to directly endanger one's life. Who dares to gamble? Even if you are born with a level 20 divine level martial soul, but you are only 6 years old and have no background, what capital do you have to negotiate terms with others? You must take everything for granted childishly and naively, just as I haven't said these words. And then, with the identity of Douluo, how can he accept the protagonist as his disciple? Of course, everything is arranged. Can the author not think of a question that everyone can think of? Douluo is just a tool in the martial soul hall, just hanging the name of his master. The interests behind him are explained in later books. I didn't originally want to spoil it, but there's really nothing I can do. I always feel like some book friends are rubbing my intelligence on the ground. Secondly, there is the issue of the protagonist overlapping passives. The passivity has always been stacked, and everyone can think of ways to stack passivity. The author has also thought about places such as the capital of slaughter, which have been arranged in the future. The reason why it is not mindless and passive is mainly due to the consideration of life and freedom issues. Having the ability to defy the heavens, showing it before being strong enough, is nothing but two outcomes. Being killed and being used as a tool. If you want to go further, you can only develop in a lewd way, and only when you reach a certain level of growth can you be carefree. Don't worry, the protagonist will always be invincible. This book is originally a cool writing style, but it's not the kind of brainless cool writing. Finally, there is a system issue. The system is just an auxiliary tool that won't affect the protagonist's judgment too much, and there are no system tasks or anything like that. Those who say the protagonist is a system puppet when they see the word system, don't be fooled. In the end, no book is absolutely perfect, and there must be some other shortcomings in this book. Please forgive me. Reading is meant to be enjoyable, so don't be overly concerned and take it seriously. A good word brings warmth to 3 winters, while a wicked word hurts the cold of 6 months. Those who like this book, sincerely thank you for your support. If you feel it's not to your taste, there are more good books to choose from. May everyone enjoy watching. The new book sets sail, and we hope everyone can support us. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Innate Soul Power Level 20, Shocking Everyone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Innate Soul Power Level 20, Shocking Everyone. System. The martial soul is the Soul Lock Warden. Isn't it a hammer stone? Innate Soul Power Level 20. And also obtain the passive Hell Curse of Hammerstone. Good guy, did I take off directly? Rows of information appeared directly in front of the forest, causing it to be momentarily stunned. After reading all the information, the forest was already deeply shocked, and emotions such as joy and excitement were about to engulf him. When he first crossed over to this world, Luo fantasized about the arrival of the system every day and specifically verified whether his parents, uncles, and aunts were hidden account Douluo. As a result, the whole family was ordinary people, which left him utterly disillusioned. Luo is ready to be an ordinary person all his life. Unexpectedly, on the day of Wu Soul's awakening, a pile of rockets suddenly appeared in his hands. Looking down at the sickle and lantern in his hand, Luo's heart became increasingly joyful. In addition, he could also feel a special power added to his body, which must be soul power. The martial soul has awakened completely, and the next step is to test its soul power. Su Yuntao's voice suddenly sounded, pulling the forest back to reality. All the information that had originally appeared in front of the forest disappeared, and it was obvious that Su Yuntao could not see that information. A blue crystal ball was already placed on the nearby table. Su Yuntao gestured for Lin Luo to pass by, and Lin Luo immediately followed suit. As he moved, the chains collided and made a faint sound. Use your mind to retrieve your martial soul, then release it and try back and forth a few times. Su Yuntao reminded that as his gaze fell on the sickle and lantern in the hands of the forest, a hint of surprise unconsciously rose on his face. The forest immediately followed suit, effortlessly retracting and releasing it. After several successful attempts, he also greatly enjoyed the feeling of possessing martial soul and soul power. Alright, put away the martial soul and put your hands on it. Su Yuntao said, based on my years of experience awakening martial souls to others, your martial soul is very extraordinary. It should have innate soul power, and your innate soul power is not low. Lin Luo pretended to have a surprised and expectant expression, but his heart was secretly saying, Brother Tao, you should say that my martial soul is useless. But it's not a big problem anymore, everything has become a foregone conclusion. Lin Luo placed his hand on the blue crystal ball, and Su Yuntao also put his hand on it. Lin Luo's innate soul power test began accordingly. At this moment, a system prompt appeared in front of the forest, still the choice of whether to expose the innate soul power. Without much hesitation, the forest chose to persist in being itself and showcase its true innate soul power level. There's no way, practicing techniques is too tempting. There are plenty of opportunities to get the Space Soul Guide in the future. Besides, how long can innate soul power level 20 be concealed? It's impossible to keep dragging on without obtaining soul rings, it's better to expose them early. You have successfully made a choice. The forest felt a strong suction coming from the blue crystal ball, and the soul power inside surged out as if it had found a vent. Immediately after, the blue crystal ball began to shine, but in an instant it was incredibly dazzling. This. Su Yuntao looked foolish at it, he had never seen such a situation before. According to traditional testing, as long as the crystal ball shows a slight sense, even a hint of light, it proves that the subject has soul power. However, there is only one explanation for the dazzling light shining in the blue crystal ball in front of them. Innate full soul power. Before Su Yuntao could make a final decision in his heart, he suddenly heard a click. The blue crystal ball surprisingly had cracks, which quickly spread and became unbearable, shattering onto a table. This. Su Yuntao's heartbeat gradually accelerated, and his eyes were already unconsciously wide open, his mouth slightly open. Lin Luo immediately put on a startled expression and looked at Su Yuntao with a bewildered and innocent expression, whispering, "Did I break your things?" "No, no, it's okay, it's okay." Su Yuntao regained his senses and spoke incoherently. Glancing at the blue crystal ball fragments on the table, Su Yuntao's Adam's apple rolled and he swallowed, then took a deep breath and looked seriously at the forest. "Wait for me here, I'll be back soon." After speaking, Su Yuntao hurriedly left the martial soul awakening room. At the moment the door opened, Lin Luo could hear his uncle Lin Dehai's inquiry outside. The awakening of the martial soul in the forest. The sound insulation effect of the martial soul awakening room is still very good. As soon as the door is closed, the forest cannot hear any more sound. The conversation between his uncle Lin Dehai and Su Yuntao was mostly perfunctory and Su Yuntao hurriedly left. "Brother Tao, are you going to report to the leader of the branch hall?" Lin Luo thought to himself. This is also understandable. A full level of innate soul power is enough to make the martial soul hall highly value it, let alone a 20-level innate soul power. I can't escape it. I can't hide my innate soul power at level 20. Expose it as soon as possible and release it as soon as possible. Lin Luo sighed lightly and then remembered something. I have already tested my innate soul power level. Where are the system rewards? Where are my cultivation techniques? The system did not provide any response, and Lin Luo's brow couldn't help but furrow. Just as the forest was about to have a friendly communication with the system, the door of the martial soul awakening room suddenly opened. Is Tauga so efficient? Unexpectedly, Lin Luo saw that Su Yuntao had indeed returned, with 4 or 5 elderly men dressed in martial soul palace uniforms following behind him, all of whom appeared very anxious and excited. At the moment the door opened, Lin Luo could also catch a glimpse of his uncle Lin Dehai looking inside. Seemingly seeing that the forest was fine, Lin Dehai showed a reassuring expression. Bang! The door closed once again, and everyone's gaze fell on the forest. It's him, Su Yuntao began to identify. The old men quickly arrived in front of the forest, each looking at the forest with the same eyes as the monsters. Where is the soul power test ball? An old man suddenly asked, and after they entered, their eyes remained fixed on the forest. Su Yuntao pointed to the table next to him and said, "Here it is." The gaze of those old men then shifted from Lin Luo and landed on the fragments of blue crystal balls on the table. Can it be that the soul power test crystal ball has a problem? Asked an old man. Another old man gave a highly affirmative answer. No, this soul power test crystal ball can be used for at least another 10 years. It's all broken. How did you tell? There is relevant information recorded here. The old man pointed to a piece of debris and said, everyone looks at it, and there is really detailed text recording information on it. Is it really an innate soul power level of 20? Well, the limit that a soul power test ball can withstand is level 20. Hurry up and report it. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Test again, reward the dark spirit mind technique. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Test again, reward in place. Dark spirit mind technique. These people came in too suddenly, and their emotions were so excited that the forest froze in place for a moment. Suddenly, an old man with silver hair appeared in front of the forest. He seemed to be suppressing his extremely excited emotions as much as possible and comforting him with a gentle voice. Child, did we scare you? Getting closer, the forest noticed that the silver-haired old man had one white eye and seemed to be blind. Innate soul power level 20, it's really unheard of, unseen. Isn't that right? Report this matter and it's estimated that someone will come up soon. This time, it can finally be proven that our Nodding City branch hall can also produce geniuses. This is no longer a genius, it's a monster. Several other elderly people were still expressing their emotions excitedly, and their excitement seemed to be on the verge of losing control. To describe it as a phenomenon in the original world of the forest, it is the random lottery winning the first prize. The silver-haired old man was the calmest among these old men. When he saw the forest and didn't answer, he thought it was too noisy here and immediately drank in a low voice. Everyone be quiet, those who report should go report quickly, don't scare the children. All the elderly suddenly fell silent. 2 of them hurriedly left, along with Su Yuntao, who was responsible for awakening the forest. The remaining 2 elderly stood silently on the side. Child, your name is Lin Luo, right? The silver-haired old man crouched down with a gentle smile on his face. Lin Luo nodded lightly as he noticed the emblem of 6 long swords interlocking on the uniform of the silver-haired old man's martial soul hall. Soul Master, Great Soul Master, Soul Zun, Soul Sect, and Soul King. The 6 long swords correspond exactly to the Soul King, while the long sword represents the War Soul Master. This silver-haired old man is a War Soul King. In a small place like Nodding City, the Soul King is probably at the level of a palace master. As expected, the silver-haired old man's subsequent self-introduction confirmed the thoughts in Lin Luo's heart. My name is Lan Hanxue, and I am the master of the Wuhuan Hall Nodding City Branch Hall. If you are willing, you can call me Grandpa Blue. Lin Luo nodded and pretended to be obedient, saying, Grandpa Blue. Hey. Lan Hanshue's wrinkled face bloomed with an extremely brilliant smile. The two elderly people next to them looked envious, as if they also wanted to go to the side of the forest to introduce themselves. Lin Luo, will you go do another soul power test with Grandpa Lan? Lan Hanshue smiled and asked. Lin Luo nodded, and he was very clear that this was only Lan Hanshue's notice, and it was up to him the final say whether to go or not. And Lin Luo also wanted to test it again, to see if there was a problem with the system and why the soul power test had ended. His innate soul power level 20 had also been exposed, but the system reward had not been issued to him yet. Then come with me. Lan Hanshue reached out and took Lin Luo's hand. Lin Luo felt like he had grabbed a piece of dead tree bark and then left the room driven by it. When Lin Luo went to the door, he saw his uncle Lin Dehai. Uncle, Lin Luo shouted softly, wanting to reassure his uncle Lin Dehai. Upon hearing the way the forest called Lin Dehai, Lan Hanshue gave Lin Dehai a second glance and then said to the two elderly men following him, how can we make the uncle of the forest stand here? Treat him well and talk about some things. Yes. Two elderly people nodded, one of whom was slightly older and just glanced lightly. The other elderly person immediately took action and enthusiastically began to greet Uncle Lin Dehai from the forest. And the slightly older old man continued to follow behind Lan Hanshue, his gaze more focused on the forest beside him. The three of them quickly entered another room. Compared to the martial soul awakening room, this room is much larger. Before Lin Luo could observe the layout of the entire room, he was led by Lan Hanshue to a black table. On the black table, there was a yellow crystal ball that was one circle larger than the previous blue crystal ball, obviously a specialized soul power testing tool. Lin Luo, put your hand on it. Lan Hanshue spoke to Lin Luo very gently, without any of his dignity towards the other elders. The forest immediately followed suit and put its own hand up. Lan Hanshue did not place his hand on the crystal ball like Su Yuntao did when testing his soul power for the forest before. He just reached out his finger and lightly touched it, and the yellow crystal ball suddenly lit up. I have experienced the appearance of suction time and time again before, and it was only then that my body in the forest stabilized, and my soul power was once again sucked out. As the soul power test progressed, the yellow crystal ball became brighter and brighter, and the expression on Lan Hanshue's face became more and more exciting. The expression on the slightly older old man standing behind Lan Hanshue was also the same. In just a moment, the yellow crystal ball had already bloomed with an incredibly dazzling light. At this point, the second soul power test of the forest has ended. It's really an innate soul power of level 20, it's unbelievable. Lan Hanshue spoke with some disbelief. His eyes, which were originally somewhat sunken due to his old age, were about to burst out, especially the white eyeball that looked like it was blind, staring a bit scary. At this moment, the forest finally received the system prompt he had been waiting for. You have successfully made a choice to persist in being yourself, showcasing your true innate soul power level and receiving a reward. Dark Spirit Mind Technique. The reward is finally in hand. It's not just about making a choice to directly receive the reward, there are still so many troublesome things to do, and the subsequent troubles after this choice will only be more. I have no choice at all. I am just a commoner, and the only one I can handle is the son of the coffin shop owner. The matter of innate soul power at level 20 cannot be concealed at all, it is just a matter of time. Even if the forest can conceal it for a while, it will be exposed when obtaining the soul ring. His parents are not hidden title Douluo masters, even ordinary soul masters with certain strength can do it, but the key is not that they cannot provide assistance in obtaining soul rings for him. He must need to find someone else, and things are passed down from one story to another, there is no secret that can be kept. Dong dong dong. Temple Master. The sound of knocking on the door was heard, followed by an older voice from outside. This voice was somewhat familiar and should be the old man going to do something. At this point, Lan Hanxue had already sorted out his emotions and regained calmness. The door opened and all the old people who had gone to do things before came over. Is everything done? Lan Hanxue asked with dignity. The old men nodded together. Lan Hanxue then looked towards the forest and regained his gentle demeanor. Child, do you want to go home? You are facing new choices. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Life changes here, find opportunities to stack passivity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Life changes here, find opportunities to stack passivity. You face new choices, whether to go home. Option 1. Follow your true intention, choose to go home, and reward a golden soul coin. Option 2. Observe your words and expressions, choose not to respond, and reward a silver soul coin. I really didn't expect that even if I couldn't go back home, I could still face a choice. However, judging from the reward chosen, this choice should be irrelevant. Just the difference between a gold soul coin and a silver soul coin, is there still a choice? The forest immediately responded to the system, choose to go home. While responding to the system, Lin Luo looked at Lan Hanxue with an expectant expression and nodded. Okay, we'll take you back now. Lan Hanxue agreed very happily, as if Lin Luo had any requirements. At this time, Lan Hanxue could meet Lin Luo's demands. Lin Luo also captured some information from the words learned by Lan Han. The concepts of sending you back and you going back are completely different. It seems understandable that the forest is a monster with innate soul power of level 20, and of course, it must be guarded well. Lin Luo didn't expect Lan Hanxue to agree so happily. Looking at the demeanor of these people, he thought he couldn't go back anymore. Thank you very much, Grandpa Lan, Lin Luo smiled. Basic politeness is still necessary, even if it's just a show. The palace master. Those elderly people seem to have some opinions. Lan Hanxue just gave them a faint glance, and they immediately shut up. Subsequently, accompanied by Lan Hanxue, Lin Luo embarked on his way home. Not only Lan Hanxue, but also the several elderly people were by Lin Luo's side. Lin Luo didn't see his uncle Lin Dehai and directly asked, Grandpa Lan, where is my uncle? An old man behind immediately said, he has already gone back first. Lan Hanxue looked back and the old man immediately remained silent, obviously not knowing the order of his words. A few elderly people on the street with a child didn't pay much attention, but if it were a few elderly people wearing the uniform of the Martial Soul Hall, then many people's eyes probably fell on them. It seems that they had anticipated this for a long time, and those old men had already changed into casual clothes when they left the Martial Soul Hall. To be honest, their speed of changing clothes is really fast, and even the forest couldn't react. Accompanied by these big shots, the forest felt an unprecedented sense of security and smoothly arrived at its doorstep. The street where Lin Luo's family was originally located was very deserted, but Lin Luo suddenly discovered that many new residents had moved in. The few neighbors who were originally few also inexplicably moved away and put on some unfamiliar faces. This place is already very remote, especially with some unlucky shops. How could it suddenly become popular? When the forest noticed those new neighbors and nodded at those old people, it instantly understood everything. Good guy, everyone next to my house lives in the Martial Soul Hall. Speaking of which, the efficiency of handling affairs in the Martial Soul Hall is also too high. How many people accompanied my uncle back? Grandpa Lan, this is my home now. Do you want to go in and have a cup of tea? Lin Luo pointed to his own coffin shop and said. Okay, Lan Hanxue agreed with a smile, and the other old men also agreed. Lin Luo felt a little helpless in his heart. I was just asking casually. Are you serious? How could anyone like to drink tea in a coffin shop? There's no way, the forest can only warmly greet these old men and win unanimous praise from them for being so sensible. After greeting these old grandfathers, the forest began to search for the figure of its own mother. I searched around for a long time, but couldn't find it. Did you go to Uncle's place? Lin Luo deliberately asked himself loudly. Lan Hanxue immediately looked at an old man next to him, who immediately spoke up, maybe it is. Lin Luo finally felt relieved and knew that everything was arranged by the Martial Soul Hall. Sometimes taking care of someone too thoughtfully can be quite uncomfortable. But there's no other way, who gives themselves no chance to choose now. Not being locked up is already the best outcome, although the current situation is not much different from being locked up. When can I see the cultivation of mind techniques? After Lin Luo made the choice of whether to go home, he received the system's reward at the moment he arrived home. The golden soul coin rewarded by the system seems to be stored in a very special space, and as long as the forest's mind moves, the golden soul coin can be taken out. The rewards obtained before, the dark spirit mind technique, were also stored in that special space. The forest was already eager to see it, but now is obviously not the time. Why haven't these kind and amiable grandfathers left yet? Do you really want to choose a house in my store in advance? Lin Luo felt helpless in his heart. Lan Han learned that they would occasionally chat with him about family matters, but he really doesn't have the intention to chat now. Besides, with such a big age difference, there's nothing to talk about at all, it's purely awkward. Lan Hanxue and his team did not mention any knowledge about soul masters, nor did they mention anything about the innate soul power level 20 in the forest, as if nothing had happened. Lin Luo also asked probing questions, but they didn't say much in this regard. Lin Luo has his own speculation about this, and it seems that Lan Han's main task now is to keep an eye on him, and everything else is not within their responsibility. Gulu gulu. It's time for dinner, and Lin Luo's stomach has already started timing. Are you hungry? Grandpa, go buy you something to eat. Lan Hanxue said with great concern. Lin Luo shook his head and said, no need, there should still be food at home. Do you want to? Lan Hanxue and the others were about to agree, but Lin Luo didn't say a word and walked directly into the backyard, heading straight to the kitchen. Sure enough, my mother has even prepared delicious meals. Served himself a good meal, but Lin Luo was stunned by the delicious dishes carefully cooked by his mother. In less than an hour, my life underwent earth-shattering changes. An hour ago, I was just the son of a coffin shop owner. Now, an hour later, I have become a monster with innate soul power of level 20 and a key protected object of the Martial Soul Hall. Even before leaving, Lin Luo had already thought about all the situations that would arise when his martial soul awakened. Either his martial soul awakens and inherits the sickle that the Lin family still cannot cultivate. After his martial soul awakens, he returns home and the family eats lunch calmly. At most, Uncle Lin high sighs and sighs. Either its innate soul power of 1 or 2 levels, at most not exceeding level 5. The whole family celebrates, and maybe even drums and gongs will be played. Finally, the Lin family can produce a soul master. At that time in the forest, it was highly likely that these two situations were still the former. However, the result is the unexpected situation at present. If we use certain things from the original world of the forest to describe the awakening of the martial soul, it seems like taking a university entrance exam. The amount of innate soul power determines the quality of the university entrance exam. After entering university, as long as you don't slack off, you can basically see what the future will be like. As for having 0 innate soul power, it means you haven't been admitted and can only find another way out. Lin Luo, like this, undoubtedly got admitted to the top universities and even directly obtained a pass for success. Compared to taking the college entrance exam, the awakening of the martial soul is obviously more cruel, without relying on hard work. It is simply a struggle for rebirth and luck, and the result of the awakening of the martial soul directly determines a person's life. Lin Luo is completely an exception. He doesn't rely on reincarnation or luck, he relies on cheating. It seems that I am destined not to be an ordinary person. With a sigh in my heart, the forest began to enjoy delicious food. After a great feast, Lin Luo finally returned to the shop, while Lan Hanxue and the others waited without any intention of leaving. Grandpa Lan, you guys are so busy, why don't you go back first? Lin Luo finally couldn't help but give the order to leave. The old men all looked at Lan Hanxue, who only paused before nodding and saying, we should go back too. Lan Han learned to stand up, and several other elderly people followed suit. Finally, Lan Han learned to remind him, child, be obedient at home. We'll come see you tomorrow. Why don't you guys come tomorrow and never come again in the future? Lin Luo wanted to speak, but he still held back. Finally, Lin Luo nodded lightly and watched as Lan Han learned and they left. After seeing Lan Hanxue and the others leave, Lin Luo immediately went to the residence next to Uncle Lin Dehai's estate. Uncle's family does not live in the estate, they also have their own house. It's okay for Lin Luo to be in the coffin shop. As soon as he goes out, he is stared at by many pairs of eyes. With so many people's attention, it's difficult to obey. Fortunately, there is still a certain level of privacy in the forest. For example, when he had lunch just now, Lan Hanxue and the others did not follow him. When he went to his uncle's house, those enthusiastic new neighbors only paid their respects. When I went to my uncle Lin Dehai's house, my mother Zhao Cuizue was indeed there, not only my mother, but also my father Lin Dashan, who was supposed to deliver the coffin. Uncle Lin Dehai and Aunt Mo Xiaoyu are preparing food, and everyone is very happy, the kind of person who is extremely happy. When they saw the forest, they welcomed it like a general welcoming a triumphant return. Strangely, they didn't inquire about the awakening of the martial soul in the forest. It seems that the martial soul hall has already explained it. Lin Luo was on his way here. He had originally planned to show his martial soul to his family, but now he has dispelled this idea. He is afraid that his sharing will actually bring harm to his family. The people in the martial soul hall are able to take care of their family meticulously and do some neat and tidy things. Compared to those extreme situations, the forest prefers to think recklessly. After reuniting with his family, the originally chaotic heart of the forest gradually calmed down. Everyone was just as happy and harmonious as before, skipping the awakening of the forest martial soul. After lunch, after having a meal at home and coming to Uncle's place for another meal, Lin Luo's stomach was a bit full. When he went for a walk outside, his family did not stop him. They even started counting the amount of one soul coin they earned in the morning. This is also good, but I always feel like something is missing. The martial soul hall is really powerful. In front of the soul master, commoners without background can only cooperate as much as possible. My innate soul power is at level 20. I am not the only one affected, and my family members are still inevitably affected. Turning left from Uncle's house is Yizhuang. Lin Luo looked up and then walked into a place he usually doesn't want to stay much. Entering the Yizhuang, a cold air greeted me, making me feel goosebumps all over my body, and the smell of incense and paper money wafted from my nose. Looking around, one can see more than 10 neatly arranged coffins, including the new couple, who just checked in this morning. The forest has no fear of these sleeping customers. He was taken out for training at a young age and trained by his father as a successor. He has witnessed various scenes of customers. Parents are also a more extreme type of person, and things they believe will not change. Sometimes, the forest may also wonder if the previous forest was scared to death. Should we first see the cultivation of mental techniques, or should we try the curse of hell? Lin Luo's visit to Yizhuang naturally has its own purpose, and under the care of the martial soul hall, his time will only become increasingly scarce in the future. The dark spirit heart technique and a golden soul coin rewarded by the system are still lying in a special storage space. The forest is not sure what will happen if the dark spirit heart technique is taken out, so it is temporarily put on hold. Let's try stacking the passive first. After looking around in the forest and confirming that there were no living people, he activated his martial soul. Even if someone was still staring at him in the dark, he could explain that his martial soul had been sensed. What's the point of having a mysterious connection between the martial soul and the ghosts of the dead, even if the innate soul power of level 20 has appeared? A huge sickle appeared in the hands of the forest, along with a lantern linked by chains. The forest felt a slight chill from the sickle, while the lantern at the other end of the chain always gave him a feeling of someone calling out to him. Since my martial soul is the soul lock warden, hammer stone, why is the release of my martial soul not an attachment of beast martial soul, but a weapon that directly holds the hammer stone? Lin Luo felt a bit puzzled in his heart. While in the martial soul hall, various things kept happening one after another, leaving him with no time to think about so many things. Now, he remembered this. Don't think about anything else for now, stack passive, stack passive, stack passive. When the forest opens its martial soul and holds a sickle and a lantern, a series of extremely mysterious and complex messages unconsciously come to mind. He doesn't need to understand and can go straight to the result. In the end, this message appeared in the mind of the forest: Curse of Hell. Harvest souls, provide defense and soul power, can stack infinitely. At this moment, when the forest looked at the guests in the Yizhuang, it was already a completely different scene. Above each coffin hangs a green glow. Some light clusters are relatively dim, while others are slightly brighter, with little difference. However, one of the clusters is incredibly eye-catching, at least among all the clusters here. When Lin Luo's gaze fell on the coffin, he immediately recognized it as a guest who had arrived in the morning and walked towards it. Since we are going to experiment with the passive skill Hell Curse, we must start with the brightest light cluster first. In 3 or 2 steps, the forest reached the front of the target. He lifted the lantern slightly, but with a movement of his mind, the green light quietly drifted into the lantern. Not only that light, but several surrounding light drifted in. The forest suddenly had an extremely wonderful feeling, with waves of coolness rising from the body. Not only did it not make people feel uncomfortable, but it was also very comfortable. Immediately after, the forest received several system prompts: you have successfully collected a soul, gaining 10 points of defense and 2 points of soul power. You have successfully collected a soul and obtained 1 defense and 0 soul power. You have successfully collected a soul, obtained a defense of 0.75, and 0 soul power. You have successfully collected a soul, gaining 0.1 defense and 0 soul power. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Different guests, Soul Masters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Different guests, Soul Masters. My body seems to have become stronger. Lin Luo glanced at the surface of his skin, although he didn't see anything special, it just gave him a feeling of strength. Defense seems to act directly on the body, and as defense continues to improve, the body becomes stronger and more durable. As for soul power, the obtained soul power is too little to feel much. By the way, soul power. Lin Luo's gaze immediately fell on the coffin of the guest who had been delivered this morning, as if only this guest had provided soul power, and nothing else. And, the defense provided by this guest is also the highest, a full 10 points. Other guests are too stingy and more like they are in a tight budget, and all combined, they are not as much as this guest has given. Is this guest a soul master? Lin Luo's heart was slightly puzzled. In order to verify the uniqueness of this guest, the forest continued to collect souls and carried lanterns throughout the entire charity estate. The results were the same, but none of the subsequent guests provided soul power, and the defense provided was also pitiful. Am I foolish? Only soul masters have soul power. Ordinary people don't have soul power. Why did I think of this now? Lin Luo's self mocked in his heart, and at this moment, he became even more certain that the guest who came this morning was a soul master. It was estimated that the person who paid was also a soul master, and their identities were somewhat uncertain. When I had lunch just now, I only heard that my aunt and mother had gone to share the money, and I didn't listen to them discussing the information about the guests this morning. Would you like to go back and ask later? Lin Luo thought to himself. After taking a final glance at all the guests and confirming that he had not missed anything, Lin Luo admired his sickle and lantern for a moment, and then put away his martial soul. The feeling of passive stacking is quite satisfying, but the efficiency is a bit low. Ordinary guests can provide too few things, with poor defense and no soul power at all. It seems that in the future, if you want to quickly stack passives, you need to specifically find soul masters and guests. Just, where did so many soul master guests come from? Now the passivity is stacked, and we can't find any new targets for now. Let's see how to cultivate our mental skills. Lin Luo thought of this and looked around to make sure no one was there before contacting the system. Soon, the consciousness of the forest entered that special storage space, which was similar to the item list in online games, with a gold coin and a scroll stored in the first two compartments. It seems that this place is dedicated to storing mission items. It is estimated that ordinary items cannot be stored here, and in the future, we will still need to create a spatial soul guide. Lin Luo's attention ultimately fell on that scroll, and he immediately saw relevant information prompts: Dark Spirit Mind Technique, Divine Level. The cultivation mind technique that best fits the Soul Lock Warden. A very simple and unadorned introduction. When Lin Luo wanted to further understand the Dark Spirit Mind technique, he suddenly received a prompt from the system: Do you use the Dark Spirit Mind technique? Good guy, can this cultivation mind technique be used directly? I was worried about this and that before, and I kept trying not to look. It's not a big problem, I don't have much experience acquiring the system for the first time. Using. The forest responded. The Dark Spirit Heart FA lying in the item rack suddenly turned into a light and shadow that disappeared, and then Lin Luo felt a swelling and pain in his head. Damn it! Is this about to grow a brain? Of course not for that reason. The forest can clearly perceive that there are some mysterious and complex information in its memory, and it can be directly used without his understanding. It is the Dark Spirit Mind technique. Fortunately, those pieces of information don't need to be understood because the forest finds that its brain may not be enough. The forest only had a mental movement and then entered a state of cultivation. The soul power between heaven and earth was attracted by his body, and he rushed to immerse himself in it. After some filtering, some of the soul power remained in his body forever, and his strength was also enhanced. Undoubtedly, it is a divine-level cultivation technique. With just one movement of mind, one can enter the cultivation state, and standing can enhance one's strength. It can even be upgraded by hanging up, and cultivation is constantly ongoing, but it may affect the efficiency of cultivation due to whether one's attention is focused on it. Woohoo, take off. I just don't know if others can see that I am in a cultivation state. There is so much soul power in the world, so no one should notice my white paper, right? The people in the Martial Soul Hall are really amazing. Even if they wait for the leader to come over, they can teach me how to cultivate first. Hanging up should be fine. This increases the speed, and I can't even sense it without putting in my heart, let alone others. Successfully using the Curse of Hell to stack a wave of passivity, and then successfully obtaining the divine-level cultivation technique of the Dark Spirit Heart technique, Lin Luo felt a burst of joy at this moment. Although I am in a charity estate and surrounded by guests everywhere, the forest has a very comfortable and relaxing feeling. Lin Luo has no plans to go back for the time being, and while hanging up to practice, he begins to study the system. After a moment, the forest also had a basic understanding of the system. Open the personal panel. As Lin Luo's thoughts moved, his relevant information gradually emerged before his eyes: Host. Forest. Martial Soul. Soul Lock Warden Hammer Stone. Soul Power Level. Level 20. Soul ring. Not obtained. Soul bone. Not obtained. Domain. Not obtained. Integral. 2. In the understanding of the forest, there are two existing interfaces in the system, namely the personal interface and the lottery interface, which can be opened at any time according to the wishes of the forest. The points in the personal interface are used for lottery, and the way to obtain points is through selection. As long as a selection is made, regardless of the result, 1 point will be accumulated, and 5 points can be used to draw a prize. The forest then opened the lottery interface, and a huge turntable appeared in front of him. At this time, the turntable was covered in fog, with a prompt on it, insufficient points, unable to open lottery. In addition to the personal interface and lottery interface, it is also the most important selection interface. The selection interface appears with probability, and once it appears, one must make a choice, and each choice corresponds to a completely different outcome. The next selection interface is likely to appear when the high level of the martial soul hall comes over. Lin Luo guessed in his heart. In Lin Luo's view, the probability of the selection interface appearing at his critical moment is higher. Those irrelevant choices are probably only occasionally encountered. Sha sha sha. The faint footsteps came from outside the Yizhuang, seemingly heading towards the direction of the Yizhuang. After Lin Luo felt that his martial soul had awakened, his perceptual abilities in all aspects had greatly improved. The forest falls. The shout of Uncle Lin Dehai came from outside the Yizhuang. The forest immediately responded, ah. The sound of footsteps outside suddenly became much faster, and Lin Dehai's figure walked into the village. What are you doing here, kid? Lin Dehai smiled and asked. Lin Dehai is usually very gentle towards the forest, but now he appears even more gentle. It seems that whenever he sees the forest, a smile will inevitably appear on his face, with an indescribable joy. Lin Luo said, I just came over to see the guests in the morning. What's nice about it? However, that person's identity is indeed a bit special. Lin Dehai glanced at the relatively new coffin. What's special about it? Lin Luo immediately asked. Lin Dehai didn't hide anything and touched his chin, saying, he's a soul master. I can't understand why the soul master sent us to this ordinary charity village. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Finally, there's news. People from Martial Soul City. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Finally, there's news. People from Martial Soul City. Soul masters differ greatly from ordinary people, not only in their lifetime, but also in their arrangements after death. In this small city of Notting, there are not only the Lin family doing funeral business, but also many companions, including a coffin shop and a charity estate opened by a soul master. And after the soul master dies, he enters the shops opened by the soul master, which is basically the same. At least the Lin family has been in this industry for so many years, and it is the first time they have received a soul master guest. Uncle Lin Dehai's words also woke up the forest, and his most coveted soul master customers seemed to go to those same shops to find them. Of course, this was just an idea that was rejected by the forest when it first came up, because it is unlikely to be put into practice. Leaving aside the fact that Lin Luo now enjoys key protection, even if he regains his freedom, enters someone else's shop, drives his martial soul around, and is not killed as a heretic, he will be immediately driven out as a madman. The forest can also choose to go secretly, but the risks and benefits it carries are not directly proportional. The number of soul masters is relatively small, and there are not many people who will store their bodies in the cemetery. They are basically capable of handling funerals and other related matters. Taking huge risks for limited goals is completely unworthy. Lin Dehai and Lin Luo's uncle and nephew did not stay much in Yizhuang. Lin Dehai quickly led Lin Luo out, and it was extremely rare to take Lin Luo around the street. The forest is very clear about its uncle's intentions. It disappeared for a while and has to come out for a walk to ensure its safety. Sometimes what one thinks is safe is not considered safe, it is only what others think that counts. The feeling of being taken care of meticulously by others made it difficult for Lin Luo to adapt, but he had no choice but to choose to cooperate. Fortunately, those people in the Martial Soul Hall still know how to leave some private space for the forest, without blind spots to follow, otherwise the forest will probably go crazy. For the next 2 days, the forest will be spent in such an environment. The forest also wanted to go out for a walk, but received a response from enthusiastic neighbors. "What do you need?" Lin Luo said, "We need to go out for a walk." Neighbor: "No way." Lin Luo: "There is no way, the forest can only continue to nestle in this almost most remote street of Nodding City. Fortunately, I still have the company of my family around me." When Lin Luo is alone, he also practices, but spends more time with his family and has to wander the streets every once in a while to ensure his safety. Lan Han and a few others also come once a day, but they all talk about trivial matters. In the past 2 days, Lin Luo has greeted the Martial Soul Hall countless times in his heart. Even if he has an innate soul power of level 20, there is no need to treat him so special. Also, can the efficiency of handling affairs in the Martial Soul Hall be higher? Why is there still no news from above? Lin Luo even thought that if he had chosen to conceal his innate soul power level, wouldn't there have been no such troubles? In addition, he also thought about why the system didn't give him the option to escape here. But as a result, I haven't even made a choice these past 2 days. Finally, on the 3rd morning, Lan Han learned and smiled, looking particularly in a good mood. The forest knew that there was finally movement on the other side of the Martial Soul Hall. The Lin family coffin shop, even if there is no business, still opens its doors. Who makes the neighbors too enthusiastic, they often come to visit from time to time. Only they were able to visit the coffin shop. Lin Luo poured a cup of tea for Lan Han and smiled, "Grandpa Lan, do you look in a good mood today?" Although Lin Luo has always been taken care of and feels unhappy, he always manages to be polite, which is in line with the image of an obedient and sensible child. Lan Han nodded and said, "Yes, there's news up there." Lin Luo didn't expect Lan Han to learn so directly, but he still pretended to look bewildered as he watched Lan Han learn. Lan Hanshua continued, "At the speed mentioned above, I will come to pick you up in at least 2 days. Pick me up? Where are you going?" Lin Luo said in confusion. Lan Han smiled and said, "Go to the Martial Soul City, the holy land of soul masters." Sure enough, we still cannot escape the fate of being trained with emphasis. Really? My heart is already talking nonsense, and I still have to smile on my face. Lan Han nodded and said, "Of course it's true. Your innate soul power is at level 20, and you will definitely be taken to the Martial Soul City for cultivation. If it weren't for the lack of contact with soul guides in Nodding City, you would probably be on your way to Martial Soul City now. Contact the soul guide." Lin Luo openly revealed his curiosity, and children's curiosity about unknown things can always be understood. Lan Hanshua smiled slightly and said, "A special object specifically designed to convey messages, which is extremely rare and can only be configured at the main hall level. It can directly communicate with the Martial Soul City. Telephone. Or is it a telegram? Good guy, did the soul guides of DE World become so developed? We need to report your situation to the main hall, and then the main hall will contact the Martial Soul City side before making a decision," Lan Han learned. "It turns out that reporting information is so troublesome, no wonder I have to wait for 2 days and so long. I don't know what kind of people will come from the Martial Soul City." Lan Hanshua's gaze always fell on the Lin Luo, seemingly becoming more and more pleasing to the eye. His wrinkled face always carried a faint smile. "You need to work hard to reach the Martial Soul City. Your future is limitless. If you have the opportunity in the future, remember to come back and see the place where you were born and raised, Lan Han said with a smile. Is this the beginning of bidding farewell? Lin Luo nodded lightly and said, I will definitely come back. Lan Hanxue suddenly restrained his smile and became serious. Lin Luo thought he was going to fight, but to his surprise, it was the last warning. Remember Grandpa Lan's words, be a good person. If you are too bad, they will destroy you. If you are too cowardly, they will trample on you. If you are too good or too strong, they will not trust you. They will suppress you and distance you. Only when you are similar to them, will they accept you with peace of mind. The wood is beautiful in the forest, but the wind will destroy it. If you act higher than others, it will be unacceptable. Lin Luo stood still, feeling inexplicably familiar with this sentence. After a moment, Lin Luo suddenly remembered that this seemed to be a line from a certain anime. Oh my goodness, the blue grandpa in front of him is also a traveler. After Lan Han finished his lesson, a smile rose on his face and he said, it's normal that you can't understand now, but you will gradually understand in the future. Lin Luo nodded lightly, his gaze towards Lan Hanxue becoming slightly different. At this moment, intense arguments suddenly came from the streets outside. The forest immediately went out to take a look, and it was a middle-aged man arguing with his neighbors. The middle-aged man seems to be the one who bought the coffin 2 days ago, while the guest lying in the cemetery is still a soul master. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Shocking. Elder coming to pick me up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Shocking. Elder coming to pick me up. I'm really just here to pull the body, let me in. The middle-aged man pleaded bitterly. The neighbors still kept the middle-aged man out of the street, one by one with a firm attitude. Brother, come back in a few days. I have been waiting for several days. Why wait a few more days? How many more days can your family wait for burial? How do you curse people? I'm just being honest. Even if you're the Nodding City Guard, you can't be so domineering, can you? We are from the Martial Soul Hall and are on a mission. Please understand, forced to do so, a middle-aged neighbor in his 40s finally revealed the true identities of his group. However, the middle-aged man did not buy it. What can the Martial Soul Hall do? Is there any royal law in this world? Lan Hanxue and Lin Luo, who noticed the commotion here, had already walked over. On their way, they had already heard a rough idea. Lan Hanxue looked at the members of the Martial Soul Hall and said, get out of the way. Apart from maintaining a gentle smile when facing the forest, Lan Hanxue is extremely serious towards others. The members of the Martial Soul Hall immediately stepped aside, and Lan Han learned to see the appearance of the middle-aged man clearly. At this moment, a member of the Martial Soul Hall immediately came to Lan Hanxue's side and whispered, Duan Ming, from Liang City, is engaged in corpse transportation. 2 days ago, he stored the body in the Yizhuang, and today he came to pull it away. Lan Han nodded and then looked at Lin Luo, asking, is he a customer in your store? Lin Luo nodded and said, yes, I came 2 days ago. Lan Hanxue's gaze returned to the middle-aged man and he said in a deep voice, come with us, go and claim the body. The middle-aged man immediately nodded and said, okay. Then Lin Luo walked ahead to lead the way, Lan Hanxue walked in the middle, and the middle-aged man followed at the end. In no time, they arrived at the Yizhuang and the forest brought the middle-aged man to the front of the guest. Is this the guest, right? Lin Luo asked. It's him. The middle-aged man nodded. Lin Luo asked, so how do you plan to take him away next? This coffin is really good material and has a certain weight. Do you need handling services? Lan Hanxue looked at Lin Luo with some confusion, and then Lin Luo realized that he had said it fluently. I'm used to it. The middle-aged man said, no need, I don't want the coffin anymore. As he spoke, The middle-aged man skillfully removed the young man's body from the coffin and carried it up, as if he had done this kind of action countless times. Is the identity of the body registered? Lan Hanxue asked. Lin Luo immediately said, there is a registered soul master named Duan Ming, who is 27 years old. His martial soul is unknown and his soul power level is unknown. Soul master. Lan Hanxue was only slightly surprised, but did not ask again, silently watching the middle-aged man leave with his body on his back. So let him go like this. Even if that uncle is really a corpse mover, some of his behaviors are too strange, right? If you simply want to save money and come to an ordinary charity village, why buy coffins and spend so much money? A gold soul coin is not a small amount, even if you go to a store specially prepared for soul masters, it can be more than enough. The most expensive thing is the coffin, but when you finally leave, you don't even want the coffin. Isn't this strange? It is understandable that Lan Hanxue, as the head of the branch hall of the Martial Soul Hall, does not care about ordinary people's affairs, but the key is that the identity of the corpse is a soul master, so it doesn't matter. Forget it, it's useless to think too much. I don't even care about the branch hall master around me. Why do I still think so much? Watching the middle-aged man leave, Lan Hanxue slowly spoke up, Duan Ming. The forest, which had originally planned to no longer think about those things, couldn't help but arouse curiosity in his heart when he heard a low voice from Lan Han. Grandpa Lan, do you know Duan Ming? Lan Hanxue calmly said, I don't know you. I don't think you're the soul master of our Nodding City branch hall. Lin Luo. What are you muttering about? Just to confirm again that it's not under your command. Lan Hanxue said, there are many things that don't need to be clarified too clearly. After all, a person's energy is limited. Just do your part well. Lin Luo was stunned for a moment. Alright, there was also a reason why the Blind Eye King appeared in the Nodding City branch hall. Duan Ming's arrival was considered a small incident, and it is unknown whether it was because of this incident that Lan Hanxue left afterwards. After the forest fell, I didn't go back to the coffin shop, but went to my uncle's house where my family was. As soon as I entered the door, the forest heard my aunt's complaints and my uncle's scolding. How long do we have to lock it up again? If we keep it down, people will go crazy. Can you keep your mouth closed? Don't say so much. If the people in the Martial Soul Hall hear you, do you think about the consequences? Isn't it really unbearable for me? Can't I complain even a few words? It's really unbearable. There will be compensation from the Martial Soul Hall for us. Compensation. Is human freedom something soul coins can buy? 1 gold soul coin per day. Ah. Then let's keep us locked up here. It doesn't matter for 1 or 2 years, we can do it for 10 or 8 years. A woman who is open-minded when it comes to money. Upon seeing the forest fall return, uncle and auntie immediately interrupted the conversation, both with smiles on their faces. Lin Luo has returned, hurry up and sit down for a while. What do you want to eat? Auntie will go get it for you. Auntie Mo Xiaoyu warmly greeted. Lin Luo shook his head and said, no need, thank you, auntie. Uncle and aunt have always been good to him, but now they treat him better. The forest looked at its parents, who were all sitting by the window. Father Lin Dashan is reading books about carpentry, while Mother Zhao Tsuetsue is doing needlework. When Lin Luo returned, they only looked up and compared to the enthusiasm of their uncles and aunts, they appeared much calmer. 2 days ago, they were also very excited, but as time passed, that passion gradually dissipated. Lin Luo saw a little fatigue on his parents' faces. They were all the kind of people who couldn't stay idle, and constantly resting would only make their mental state worse and worse. On the contrary, their mental state was better when they were busy in the past. The special care from the Martial Soul Hall is not only unbearable for one person in the forest, but also for everyone in the Lin family. But no matter what, if we can't bear it, we have to endure it. The Lord of Notting City probably needs to cooperate with the affairs of the Martial Soul Hall, let alone these civilians. This street is relatively remote in Notting City, but it has been closed for 2 or 3 days in a row, and no one can be seen from the Notting City Guard. Obviously, the Martial Soul Hall has already spoken. Some things in the future can actually be foreseen now, and the future strength of the Martial Soul Hall is predetermined. The next morning. As soon as Lin Luo woke up, he opened the door of the coffin shop and saw Lan Hanxue walking slowly. So early. Although Lan Hanxue comes here every day, it is still the first time he has come so early. Can it be that the people from the Martial Soul City have arrived? Lin Luo whispered in his heart, seeing Lan Hanxue's slightly hurried footsteps and a smile on his face, he was almost there. This day has finally arrived. Lan Hanxue quickly arrived at the coffin shop, and when he saw the forest, he took Lin Luo's hand and said, "Let's go, hurry up, the elder wants to see you." The forest could clearly hear Lan Han's voice trembling slightly as he learned to speak, and when he heard the words, "elder," his body also trembled slightly. Elder. It's impossible to be the elder of the Notting City Branch Hall, is it? The Branch Hall elder has this kind of scene. Have the main hall of the Branch Hall come to call for someone? Besides, it seems that only the Elder Hall has the title of elder in the Martial Soul Hall, and the others are only titles such as deacons and bishops. The title of the Branch Hall Master, Lan Hanxue, is probably just another name. Since that's the case, the elder mentioned by Lan Hanxue will only be the elder from the Elder Hall of the Martial Soul City. Good guy, Douluo is coming to pick me up. Lin Luo was extremely shocked. In no time, Lin Luo arrived at the Notting City Branch Hall under the guidance of Lan Hanxue. End of this chapter. Chapter 8 Selection. Master Ghost Douluo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Selection. Master Ghost Douluo. As soon as he entered the sub-hall, Lin Luo immediately felt an invisible and immense pressure, making his chest feel stuffy and breathing slightly difficult. Looking around, all the staff of the Martial Soul Hall were working extremely seriously, with a feeling of dealing with inspections. Passing through the lobby on the first floor, Lin Luo followed Lan Han to the second floor and finally arrived at the office belonging to Lan Han's school. Standing next to the window in the office, a person is more like a phantom, making you involuntarily wonder if you have hallucinations. Elder, the forest is here. Lan Han said respectfully. You can go now. The hoarse voice sounded as if it came from all directions, extremely majestic. Yes, Elder. Lan Hanxue glanced at the forest and immediately left. Carefully closing the door, Lan Hanxue finally breathed a sigh of relief. It was also the first time he had seen such a big shot, and he was so nervous that he couldn't even breathe when talking to him. My task has been completed. Lan Hanxue did not stop outside the door, fearing that it would cause resentment from the big shots inside. He went to another vacant office to start his day's work. In the room, the gaze of the forest remained fixed on that phantom. Under his gaze, the phantom slowly turned around. I saw a tall man wearing a black robe, covered in black mist all over his body. Under the black mist, I could see a rough outline of his body, but I couldn't see his face clearly. Even so, the forest could clearly perceive that the other person's gaze was on itself. Just being looked at by the other person, Lin Luo suddenly felt his heart suddenly stop, and the invisible terrifying pressure gathered on him, truly fulfilling the sentence that one more glance would explode. Is this the strength of the title Douluo? Even if it doesn't explode, it can bring immense terrifying pressure to people. Coming from the Martial Soul City, with the identity of an elder, and with this appearance, it is highly likely that it is the ghost Douluo in the Elder Hall. Activate your martial soul. A hoarse voice sounded, and the pressure on Lin Luo's body was instantly lifted. His back had been soaked in cold sweat. Lin Luo quickly nodded and said, Okay. With a movement of Lin Luo's mind, he opened his martial soul, and his soul power fluctuated. A huge sickle with green light appeared in Lin Luo's hand. The end of the sickle was connected to the chain, and the other end of the chain was tied to a lantern emitting green light, filled with a strange atmosphere. After seeing the martial soul of the forest, Ghost Douluo paused slightly, and the black mist surrounding him seemed to become more intense, but soon returned to normal. "All right, put it away." Lin Luo immediately withdrew his martial soul, and under the majestic voice of Gue Douluo, his heart only had two words. Obedience. "Do you know what your martial soul is called?" Gue Douluo asked. "You don't even know, how could I, this little brat, know?" In order not to give his martial soul any strange titles, Lin Luo began to ramble. "When my martial soul awakened, a voice rang in my mind, as if calling for the Warden of Soul Lock. Actually, it's not just nonsense. When he awakened his martial soul, there was actually a voice telling him what the martial soul was called, but that voice came from the system, the Warden of Soul Lock." Finally, there was a hint of laughter in Gue Douluo's voice. "Interesting. Your martial soul is a divine-level martial soul. Only divine-level martial souls will have innate soul power of level 20 when awakened, and will carry their own martial soul information." Ghost Douluo said slowly. Now that his previous indifference and authority had changed, his voice sounded somewhat softer. However, perhaps due to the special nature of his martial soul, Ghost Douluo's voice still sounded very eerie. Upon hearing this, Lin Luo was somewhat surprised and immediately understood that Gue Douluo had just asked him what his martial soul was called. Unexpectedly, his mouth opened and he happened to be in contact. Divine-level martial souls are extremely rare. In my understanding, only 2 have appeared. You are one of them, and the other is also in our martial soul hall. Another one is Qianren Snow. If I remember correctly, it seems that she also has innate soul power at level 20. Your martial soul is very special, and the aura it reveals is very close to mine. I want to take you as my disciple, are you willing? Ah! Lin Luo was stunned. On his way here, he had fantasized about various situations when he saw the elder, but he didn't expect the other party to directly accept him as his disciple. Gue Douluo didn't pay much attention to the bewildered and surprised expression on the forest, but continued, "My name is Gue Mei, and my martial soul is also called Gue Mei. I am titled Douluo and Gue in the 95 level sensitive attack series. I am currently the elder of the martial soul hall. As long as you are willing to worship me as your teacher, I will give you everything." The confusion in the forest was not just a pretense. He didn't understand the operation of Gue Douluo. Why did he take him as his apprentice just when we met? After all, it's a title Douluo, and it's still the peak Douluo at level 95. How could you accept disciples so hastily? Shouldn't there be a test or something? Or rather, the divine-level martial soul with innate soul power of level 20 is even more attractive than he imagined. Ding. In the midst of the forest, he suddenly received a familiar prompt sound, followed by a system prompt, "Are you facing a new choice now? Do you agree to let Ghost Douluo worship him as his teacher?" Option 1. This is a great opportunity. Choose to agree to Ghost Douluo and reward him with a red crystal. Option 2. Perhaps there is a better teacher. Choose to reject Ghost Douluo and reward a blue crystal. Red crystal, blue crystal, what the hell? I don't force you, but you need to tell me your choice before returning to the martial soul city. Gue Douluo's voice became much colder. "Teacher, please bow down to the forest." Lin Luo bows with his fists clasped in his arms, and there is no need to kneel before his master in Douluo world. Is it still necessary to choose? Faced with this sudden situation, I feel confused, but when it comes to making a choice, there's no need to think too much, right? The title Douluo at level 95, the elder of the martial soul hall, and the martial soul is still a ghost. Strength, identity, and professionalism are in line, and there is no need to think carefully about any flaws in each of them. Isn't it a great thing for such a teacher to come knocking on their door? If encountering those so-called masters who want to take him as their disciple, he will definitely refuse without hesitation. Without comparison, there will be no difference. Moreover, it is also the most important point that his identity and strength are too far apart from those of the ghost Douluo. When others accept him as their disciple, does he have the right to refuse? Even if you awaken your divine-level martial soul, you are still just an ordinary commoner with no identity background. Refusing would be tantamount to offending and could greatly endanger your life. And agreeing is equivalent to having a peak Douluo as a support, at least in the current situation. It is said to be a choice, but in fact, there is no choice at all. Even if there are more choices in the martial soul hall, Lin Luo is unwilling to take his own life at risk. Upon seeing Lin Luo agree, Douluo was delighted and said, "All right. My ghost has finally received a suitable disciple." The forest felt a cool breeze brushing by, and his body was lifted up by an invisible special force. The ghostly laughter rang out. "You're still young now, and I have a lot of things here that you don't need. I'll give you this skeleton ring as a gift when we meet." A black ring floated out of the black mist and arrived in front of the forest. Lin Luo immediately accepted it and bowed in gratitude, saying, "Thank you very much, teacher." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Obtain the soul ring and arrive at the soul hunting forest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Obtain the soul ring and arrive at the soul hunting forest. You have successfully made a choice to agree to Ghost Douluo, become his teacher, and receive a reward. Red Crystal. Almost as soon as the forest received the skull ring gifted by Ghost Douluo, the forest received a system prompt in its mind. He didn't expect the reward to come so quickly, and he suddenly gained 2 treasures. His heart was incredibly happy. "Teacher, what is this thing?" Although Lin Luo knew that this skull ring was mostly a storage soul guide, a little kid had to maintain a certain level of curiosity and ask questions if he didn't know. This is a storage soul guide. With just a little soul power injected, it can complete the storage and retrieval of items, with a storage space of about 90 cubic meters. Douluo explained. It is indeed this function. By the way, is it common to give away stored soul guides as gifts to apprentices in Douluo world? It's also quite good. With this treasure, it's very convenient to access things. 90 cubic meters, the forest feels like this space is even larger than the rental house he lived in his previous life. A teacher with the title of Douluo is generous in his actions. You can now try injecting soul power to access items. In that skeleton ring, I have specially selected several books for you that have basic knowledge about soul masters, said Ghost Douluo calmly. Lin Luo nodded and immediately conducted the experiment. During the experiment, Lin Luo felt a bit strange. With the experience of Ghost Douluo, he should be disdainful to look at the so-called soul master knowledge again, right? That is to say, these books are specially prepared for himself, and he seems to have made up his mind that he will worship him as his teacher. The soul power required to use a storage soul guide is very low, and one can basically communicate with it with a single movement of mind and perceive the items inside. In that vast space of 90 cubic meters, there are really a few books. Lin Luo directly took out all the books, a total of 3, namely the first, second, and third parts of Basic Knowledge of Soul Masters. The authors all wrote about the martial soul hall, rather than a certain master. Under the gaze of Douluo, the forest was visited several times and quickly became proficient. After a moment, Douluo nodded satisfied and said, "All right, you're learning very fast. Give you another half day to say goodbye to your family, and then I will take you back to the martial soul city. On the way back, I will also take you to obtain the first and second soul rings." Lin Luo asked tentatively, "Teacher, can I take my family to the martial soul city?" Douluo said calmly, "You need to ask their opinions. Moreover, going to the martial soul city does not necessarily mean it is a good thing for them. The forest was already prepared to be rejected, but it was unexpected that Douluo would say such a thing. This seemed somewhat out of line with Douluo's extremely cold and ruthless image. Good teacher, thank you, teacher. Lin Luo bowed and thanked. Then Lin Luo left the room. As soon as he walked out, Lan Hanxue welcomed him and said he wanted to accompany him back, as if everything had already been arranged. In no time, Lin Luo returned to his own coffin shop, and the whole family was already waiting for him in the shop. They seemed to have been mentally prepared by the martial soul hall for a long time. When they saw the forest come back, they all smiled and said, "When you go there, be obedient and write letters frequently." The scene of crying in the imagination of the forest did not appear. Is it because the family members were too optimistic or because I was too emotional? Father, mother, uncle, aunt, why don't you go to Martial Soul City together? I can't bear to part with you, said the forest. Father Lin Dashan said, we have long been accustomed to living here, and going to other places will only make us uncomfortable. You just need to rest assured and don't worry about us. Although Zhao Tsuetsue had a smile on her face, her eyes had already turned red and she said, Child, you must take good care of yourself when you go there. If conditions permit, try to write more letters and contact your family as much as possible. Parents are reluctant to let their children leave their side, but when their children have a better future, even if they are reluctant to part ways, they still have to face separation. Uncle Lin Dehai said, Lin Luo, you are the hope of our Lin family. When you go there, you must double your efforts and not let down the talent bestowed upon you by heaven. Aunt Mo Xiaoyu said, after going there, you must be happy every day. If you are not happy enough to live, even if you have strong strength, it is useless. Lin Dehai immediately glared at Mo Xiaoyu and said, a woman's vision. Then he looked at the forest with a smile and said, good nephew, don't listen to your aunt's nonsense. All happiness and happiness are built on a certain foundation of strength. As long as you work hard to become strong, you can definitely be happy and happy. Lin Luo nodded forcefully, remembering all the words of his family in his heart. He has also experienced many separations in his past life, but for some reason, the current one has made his heart very uncomfortable. The forest is very clear that after this parting, it is very likely to be a farewell, and no one knows when the next meeting will be. Once you step into the world of soul masters, it is destined to be difficult to integrate into the lives of ordinary people. After having lunch with his family and saying a very simple goodbye, Lin Luo followed Lan Hanxue back to the Martial Soul Hall, but his family did not come to see him off. It was the room where I saw Ghost Douluo in the morning, and Ghost Douluo seemed to have been waiting for him in that room all along. We should go now, said Douluo. Lin Luo nodded and said, okay, teacher. Douluo arrived at the side of the forest, and a cold and gloomy aura came towards him, but it did not make the forest feel any discomfort, but rather brought him a very comfortable feeling. Mist drifted in, and the forest could clearly sense a big hand landing on its shoulder. Before the forest could react, his whole body was already enveloped in mist, and his vision was also obscured by mist. When the forest regained its view, he and Douluo had already arrived outside the city of Nodding. Let's take you to obtain the soul ring first, said Ghost Douluo. 1 hour later. At the entrance of the soul hunting forest. When the feet of the forest fall to the ground, there is still a feeling of being in a dream. Douluo's speed was really too fast. As soon as he reached the forest, he couldn't even enjoy the scenery along the way. He could only see colorful colors flashing through his eyes, or a gray mist. In the end, he couldn't bear it and simply closed his eyes. However, the forest did not suffer any physical damage due to the terrifying speed. With the soul power of Ghost Douluo wrapped around him, he was not affected in any way and remained in an extremely comfortable state throughout the journey. Perhaps as Ghost Douluo said, their martial souls seem to be very close. Ghost Douluo gives people a feeling of not being close to strangers, but staying with Ghost Douluo in the forest always feels very comfortable. However, it seems understandable that the Soul Lock Warden and the Ghost are together, which is of course comfortable. From a certain perspective, the two belong to the same category. "Let's go," said Ghost Douluo, walking forward. The forest felt a refreshing breeze brushing by, and the whole person instantly regained calmness, immediately following in the footsteps of Douluo. "Teacher, are you going through the gate?" Lin Luo felt a little puzzled in his heart. With the strength of Ghost Douluo, it is completely possible to enter without being aware of it. End of this chapter. Chapter 10 First Soul Ring Selection. Millennium. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 First Soul Ring Selection. Millennium. This is the first thing I want to teach you, follow the rules. The voice of Douluo rang out, and a token floated in front of the forest. Lin Luo took the token and looked at it. Good guy, it was the Elder Token. The Elder Token consists of 6 patterns, and the martial soul of one's own teacher is one of them. The teacher is really skilled in speaking. The first thing he teaches is to follow the rules. It should be pretending to be forced, right? Just kidding, Lin Luo still knows the intention of Douluo. Following the rules is an extremely important thing. If you don't have enough strength to break the rules, you have to follow them. Teacher, what is this token? Even if you know the origin and purpose of this token, the forest still needs to pretend to be curious about the baby without knowing anything. Douluo said, "There are some books I gave you. You can read them yourself later." At this moment, Douluo and Lin Luo had already arrived at the entrance to the soul-hunting forest, and the soldiers guarding around immediately came forward to verify their tokens. Douluo said calmly, "Give them the token in your hand." "Okay, teacher." Pretending to be forced is about to start. The forest handed out the token, and the soldier looked at it and collapsed to the ground. He quickly adjusted his body and knelt down, trembling with both hands as he held the token and respectfully shouted, "I've seen the Elder." The others immediately followed the words and knelt down on the ground, shouting with utmost respect, "I've seen the Elder." When they looked up, Douluo and Lin Luo had already disappeared, along with the Elder token. When Douluo and the forest reappeared, they had already arrived in the soul-hunting forest. Douluo said, "Put away the token, it will be useful in the future." "Okay, thank you very much, teacher." Lin Luo bowed and thanked. "By the way, don't those soldiers verify the authenticity of the token? Or is it that there won't be any fake cards at all? When something is linked to life, the so-called falsehood will disappear, and even if it exists, it will be very rare." Walking in the Soul Beast Forest, I saw many uniquely shaped soul beasts in the forest, but I didn't know their names, and Ghost Douluo had no intention of explaining them. It seems that he noticed that the gaze of the forest often fell on him. Douluo said, "Even if you understand these ordinary soul beasts, they won't be of much help to you in the future. If you're interested, you can read them in a book later." I got it, teacher." Lin Luo nodded. Douluo then said, "You may experience some pain later. Please endure it a bit." Upon hearing this, Lin Luo was somewhat puzzled, but he still nodded subconsciously. However, before he could even nod, he felt an extremely cold breath seeping into his body from behind. In that moment, he felt like he was falling into an ice cellar, and his heart suddenly stopped. Fortunately, this feeling did not last too long, and then Douluo's voice rang out again. "Your physical strength is much better than I expected, even stronger than that one. Perhaps this is the benefit that divine-level martial souls bring to you. The powerful features they bring can make you stand a lot higher than others from the beginning." With a hint of emotion in Douluo's voice, he immediately moved on to the main point. "You can try absorbing the Millennium Soul Ring, although it's a bit risky. If you fail, you may die." "A 1,000-year soul ring?" Lin Luo exclaimed in surprise. Douluo said, "You don't understand these knowledge yet, but it's okay. You will understand them in the future." You only need to know a little bit, and I have just explored your body. I can definitely try to absorb the Millennium Soul Ring, but the risk is also inevitable. You can decide for yourself. Will failure lead to death? Yes. In the impression of the forest, the first soul ring of the Soul Master seems to be at most a century-old soul ring. At least there is no example of a millennium-old soul ring in the plot of Dui's original work. The sudden occurrence of Douluo made the forest feel a bit conflicted. By the way, is it really good to let a 6-year-old child who doesn't understand anything choose life and death matters? However, Ghost Douluo was already very polite and asked for his opinion. It was already quite good that he did not directly become a tool person in the martial soul hall when engaging in ideological struggles in the forest. The system reappears in a timely manner. Are you facing a new choice, whether to choose the Millennium Soul Ring as the first soul ring? Option 1. An adventurous attempt that carries certain risks but can also bring you a better future. Choose a Millennium Soul Ring and reward it with a red crystal. Option 2. Never heard of the attempt. Life is important. Go to his mother Millennium Soul Ring. Do not choose the Millennium Soul Ring. Reward a blue crystal. Are the rewards red crystal and blue crystal? The red crystal obtained from the last selection has not been viewed yet. I believe in the teacher. Lin Luo made his own choice. It is not difficult to tell from Douluo's words that he has a certain level of confidence in this matter. In addition, the forest also has a certain level of confidence in its own body. After the awakening of the martial soul, Lin Luo could clearly feel his body becoming stronger. In addition, he gained some defense points by harvesting his soul in the Yizhuang, and his physical strength also increased significantly. These are the capital that he can take advantage of. It is impossible for Lin Luo not to fight for the opportunity in front of him. Upon hearing Lin Luo's answer, Douluo smiled contentedly and said, "Okay, you truly deserve to be my disciple of ghosts and demons. You have successfully made a choice. And received a reward. Red crystal." The rewards have once again quickly arrived, and the forest is not sure if this is an improvement in system efficiency or if these choices and rewards are already mediocre. The mist on Douluo's body enveloped him once again, and the forest knew that Douluo was going to accelerate his search for soul beasts. He just said that even if he understands these ordinary soul beasts, they won't be of much help in the future. Obviously, he doesn't want to waste time in these stages. Once he has determined the basic target range, he can just go find them. Amidst the mist, the forest's mind moved and consciousness entered the special storage space provided by the system. 2 red crystals lay quietly in the grid, and a golden soul coin seemed out of place. When the attention of the forest was focused on the red crystal, it immediately looked up and saw the relevant information about the red crystal. Red crystal increases 15 health points after use. Increase health. Lin Luo's attention shifted away from the information introduction and returned to the appearance of the red crystal. The oval-shaped blood-red crystal. Boy, no wonder you look so familiar. Isn't this his mother, the basic equipment in the league? Can those 2 red crystals still synthesize Bambi's slag? Ding. Do you want to use slag from 2 red crystals to synthesize Speckle's lying trough? It's really possible. Pay attention to him. Let's first synthesize and take a look. Synthesis. Synthesis successful. You have obtained the slag of Bambi. The 2 red crystals in the item list disappeared, replaced by a fiery red crystal wrapped in flames. Bambi's slag. After use, increase 30 health points and obtain basic fire attributes. Found it. The sound of Douluo sounded, pulling the thoughts of the forest back. As soon as the forest regained its view, it saw a white mist flying towards it. It was only when it got closer that it realized it was a white soul beast with a slime-like appearance, and releasing the white mist was just its means. Activate your martial soul and kill it. That special soul beast was heavily smashed to the ground by Ghost Douluo and had lost its combat power. It has to be said that Douluo's control over soul power is truly in place. With his strength, as long as he releases his soul power a little, the soul beast may die suddenly on the spot. Lin Luo was momentarily taken aback, immediately activated his martial soul, wielding a giant sickle to give the special soul beast a final blow. With a puff sound, the sickle blade sank into the body of the special soul beast, taking away its last vitality. With it, a purple soul ring slowly rose. Douluo was slightly surprised and said, "I didn't expect you to have some courage. You were so calm when you killed a soul beast for the first time." Lin Luo showed a bewildered expression and said, "Teacher, if I say I'm extremely scared, do you believe me?" Douluo's voice was rarely accompanied by a hint of laughter. Quickly absorb the soul ring and use your mind to guide. End of this chapter.